Would our members please find their seats? Would our guests find a seat in the gallery? We'll get started. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the recess meeting of the Will County Board for January 19th, 2012. We'll call this meeting to order. If everyone would please stand. County Board Member Chuck Mayer will lead us in the pledge this morning and then introduce our clergy.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. It is with great pleasure that I get to introduce Pastor Jane Percola. Did I get that right, Jane?
Very close.
Okay. Jane is from the Faith Lutheran Church here in Joliet. It's very appropriate that we have Jane come in for invocation after the Pledge of Allegiance, because where and what other country on this planet can we have one denomination, being Catholic, introduce another denomination and be very comfortable with that?
Right.
And so we appreciate your opportunity to come out here and be with us today. And I turn it over to you.
It's my pleasure to be here. Good morning. I'd like to share a few words with you today about the topic of calling. From the book of Isaiah, we find these words: "Whom shall I send, and who will go for us? And then I said, Here I am, send me." A few excerpts from a reading from My Utmost for His Highest by Oswald Chambers. God did not address the call to Isaiah. Isaiah overheard God saying, "Who will go for us?" The call of God is not for a special few. It is for everyone. Whether or not I hear God's call depends on the state of my ears and on the state of my heart. And what I hear depends on my disposition. Many are called, but few are chosen. That is, few prove themselves to be the chosen ones. The chosen ones are those who have come to a relationship with God. They hear that still, small voice questioning all the time, "Who will go for us?" It is not a question of God singling out a man or a woman and saying, "Now you go." God did not lay a strong compulsion on Isaiah. Isaiah was in the presence of God. He overheard the call, and he realized that there was nothing else for him to say in conscious freedom but, "Here I am, send me." Get out of your mind the idea of expecting God to come with compulsions and with pleadings. Just look. God's call is all around us. When we see need, when we have an opportunity to make the difference, it is then that we say, "Here I am, send me." Please pray with me. Almighty God, you have placed us in a position of being sent. You have empowered us with resources that together we might make a difference in the lives of the people we serve. Give us the tools that we need, the wisdom that we seek, the power to make a difference in the world around us. And all God's people said, Amen.
Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Sure. Bellotta. Adamick. Deutsch. Howard. Singer. Izzo. Weigel. Drayle. Hart. McPhillips. Custa. Mayer. Trainier. Argadelis. Goodson. Brian Smith. Gould. May. Rozak. Conagy. Zagrosi. Brooks. Stewart. Winfrey. Babbage. Wilhelmie. And Mustis. Mustis?
Mr. Mustis?
Thank you.
25 members present, 2 absent.
25 members present. We do have a quorum established. Entertain a motion to place on file the certificate of publication. Moved by Mr. Babbage, second by Ms. Trenier. Madam Clerk, call the roll, please.
Sure. Bellotta? Adamick? Howard? Singer? Izzo? Weigel? Drayle? Thank you. Hart? McPhillips? Costa? Mayor? Trainier? Goodson? Brian Smith? Gould? May? Rozak? Conagy? Zagrosi? Brooks? Stewart? Winfrey? Babbage? Wilhelmie? And Mustis. Thank you.
25 affirmative.
25 affirmative, motion has carried. Entertain a motion for the approval of the minutes of the December 15, 2011 meeting. Moved by Mr. Adamick, second by Mr. Stewart. Any questions? Previous roll by Mr. Gould, second by Ms. Rozak. All in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary, motion carries. Citizens to be heard. There will be ample time at the appropriate time for citizens to be heard. Madam Clerk, would you please acknowledge our elected officials and the media that is present this morning?
Sure. Circuit Clerk Pam McGuire, County Clerk Nancy Schultz-Foots, our County Executive Larry Walsh, Recorder of Deeds Karen A. Stuckel, our Sheriff Paul Kopis, and our State's Attorney James Glasgow. Media, we have John Seidel from Sun-Times Media, Alice from Bree from Trib Local, and Michael Cleary from Farmers Weekly.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
First thing on our agenda is an honorary proclamation. Would County Board Member Lori McPhillips please come to the podium, and we'll make a presentation, proclamation recognizing Zachary David McKibben.
We're already on it. First is a little history. The Eagle Scout program started in 1911, and only 2% of all Boy Scouts achieve the rank of Eagle Scouts. So that's pretty amazing and a great accomplishment. It's wonderful to hear about the great young people we have in our community, because sometimes the bad things overshadow, and this is a wonderful accomplishment. We actually, in my son's Boy Scout troop, we had Michael Tunk. He achieved that rank also last week, so congratulations, a great accomplishment. And we have a proclamation. Whereas Zachary David McKibben, a senior at Neuqua Valley High School, is a member of Boy Scout Troop 8, Three Fires Council, and whereas Zachary is 18 years old and has been active in scouting since joining as a Cub Scout with Pack 317 in 1999, he earned his Arrow of Light, the highest award in Cub Scouts. And whereas Zachary has truly established himself as an outstanding scout, having earned 21 merit badges, as well as displaying his leadership abilities through various positions such as Senior Patrol Leader, Assistant Senior Patrol Leader, Assistant Patrol Leader, and my favorite, Grub Master, which is a challenging job, I'm sure, with young men. Whereas for his Eagle Scout project, Zachary worked in conjunction with the Will County Forest Preserve District in Hamel Woods to rehab 46 park benches, replacing rotted boards, cleaning, and repainting the benches. And whereas after graduation, Zachary will be attending the University of Beijing to study Chinese medicine. Amazing. Whereas through much hard work and dedication, Zachary has soared to the distinction of Eagle Scout. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Will County Board and the Will County Executive hereby congratulate Zachary David McKibben on his achievement of Eagle Scout rank, and be it further resolved that the Court of Honor for Eagle Scout Zachary David McKibben was held on January 8th, 2012 at the Compass Church in Naperville, Illinois, dated this 19th day of January 2012. Larry Walsh, Will County Executive, and Nancy Schultz-Foots, Will County Clerk, and I so move.
Moved. Second by Mr. Mayor. All in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary, motion has carried. Congratulations. Wonderful.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I'd like to thank Chairman Mustis for his continued support of the Boy Scouts of America. I'd like to thank Renee from the Forest Preserve and just Will County for providing all these different parks and forest preserves that we can enjoy as Boy Scouts. Thank you.
All resolutions from the December 15, 2011 County Board agenda have been signed by the County Executive. Moving on to new business, our first committee, Land Use and Development Committee, Mr. Weigel, Chairman.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Tom.
I'd like to open the public hearing for land use cases, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Weigel, second by Mr. Adamick. Denise?
Good
Ms.
morning,
Winfrey?
Mr. Executive. Before we move into the new business, I'd like to recognize some guests that are in the house this morning.
Okay.
We have with us this morning a group from the Warehouse Workers for Justice. As a part of our growth and development in the county, the Warehouse Workers for Justice has been formed to ensure that workers also participate in the growth of wages and benefits. An offshoot of that is the newly formed Women's Legal Defense Fund. You should have a flyer on your desk, or you may have gotten one outside this morning. So I want to introduce the members of the Women's Legal Defense Fund that are with us this morning. They're Edwina Marin, Sandra Hernandez, Charlotte Drugan, Cindy Marble, Letty Marquez Prado, Priscilla Marshall, Imelda Saldivar. The Women's Legal Defense Fund is put in place to ensure that women workers in the warehouses and our new businesses that are coming to the area are treated with the courtesy and dignity and respect that is due to any human being, regardless of race, gender. And we are looking to have others join with us in that effort. There are a number of other supporters in the house this morning. I'm going to ask them to stand at this time. Thank you. What's ongoing now is a case before the courts involving one of the women who before this time did not have legal recourse, which is the point of the Women's Legal Defense Fund. So we want to just make you aware that things are happening in the area. We absolutely encourage the growth and development in the area, but want it to be in a way that supports the residents of Will County, and especially women who are being victimized and subjected to some sexual abuse in the area. We want to keep that in your awareness. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Winfrey. Thank you, and welcome to the Will County Board meeting. So, thank you. Now, we have a motion and a second on the floor to go into public hearing. Madam Clerk, call the roll, please.
Sure. Bellotta? Yes. Adamick?
Yes.
Howard? Yes. Singer? Yes. Izzo?
Yes.
Weigel?
Yes.
Drayle? Hart? Yes. McPhillips? Yes. Custa? Yes. Mayor?
Yes.
Trainier? Yes. Goodson? Yes. Smith? Yes. Gould?
Yes.
May? Yes. Rozak? Yes. Konecki? Yes. Segrosi? Yes. Brooks?
Yes.
Stewart?
Yes.
Winfrey? Yes. Babbage?
Yes.
Wilhelmy? Yes. And Mustis. Yes. Thank you.
25 affirmative.
25 affirmative. We are in public hearing. Please be advised, absolutely no new evidence or information will be allowed once the land use public hearing is closed. We have three cases this morning to be heard. Case 6016-M, case 6024-S, and case 6027-S. Is there anyone from the public that wishes to speak on any of these cases? Is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak on any of these three cases? Is there anyone from the public wishing to speak? Mr. Weigel.
I'd make a motion to close the public hearing.
Moved by Mr. Weigel, second by Mr. Custa. Madam Clerk, call the roll, please.
Sure. Bellotta? Adamick? Howard? Singer? Izzo? Weigel?
Yes.
Drayle? Hart? McPhillips? Custa? Mayor? Trainier? Goodson? Smith? Gould? May? Rozak? Conicke? Zagrosi? Brooks? Stewart? Winfrey? Babbage? Wilhelmie? And Mustis. Thank you.
25 affirmative.
25 affirmative, the public hearing has been closed. Mr. Weigel, please continue.
The case 6016-M involves a zoning map amendment from R2A to A1. This is in Troy Township, involves 48 acres approximately. Committee recommends approval, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Weigel, second by Mr. Gould. Any questions on this case? Any questions? Move for previous roll call by Ms. Rozak, second by Mr. Babbage. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary, motion is carried.
Next case 6024-S, Lakewood Falls Homeowners Association, a special use permit to amend Unit 4, Pod 9 of the Lakewood Falls PUD in Plainfield Township. This is to allow building of a clubhouse. Committee recommends approval, and there are 4 conditions, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Weigel, second by Mr. Adamick. Any questions? Any questions? Previous roll call by Mr. Brooks, second by Ms. Trainier. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary, motion is carried.
Next case 6027-S. This is for a special use permit to remain A1 in Peatone Township. This is with 2 conditions. Committee recommends approval, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Weigel, second by Ms. Rozak. Any questions? Previous roll call by Mr. Howard, second by Mr. Wilhelmie. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary, motion is carried. Ms. Conicke? No? No. Okay, thank you.
Next is Resolution 1201, resolution for an extension of the effective period of a variance for case 5941-V in Frankfort Township. They were not able to commence construction of the accessory building, and the committee recommends approval, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Weigel, second by Mr. Smith. Any questions? Previous roll call by Ms. Winfrey, second by Ms. Trainier. All in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary, Ms. Conicke, would you like to be a yes?
Thank you.
Yes? Okay, thank you.
Next resolution 1202, authorizing a temporary use permit for a construction trailer in Plainfield Township. Committee recommends approval, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Weigel, second by Mr. Mayor. Any questions? Previous roll by Mr. Adamick, second by Mr. Smith. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary, motion is carried.
That concludes my report. We did have a meeting last night I wanted to bring up was the workshop for the new zoning ordinance overhaul. We had about 25 people in attendance, and they gave testimony and recommendations. I think it went well. There is another meeting tonight at 6 p.m., workshop at Frankfort Township Building, and I urge anyone else who would like to attend to get information on this or has testimony to please come out. That concludes my report.
Thank you very much, Mr. Weigel. Moving on, our next committee, Finance Committee, Mr. Custa, Chairman.
Good morning, everyone, and happy January. I can't believe it's already January. Winter's halfway over. Well, with that said, I have 5 reports that I'm going to place on file. The first report is from the Illinois Department of Revenue showing sales tax remitted to Will County for the month of November 2011 to be roughly $1.3 million. The RTA tax received is roughly $1.5 million, almost $1.6 million. The second report is the monthly treasurer report dated November 30th, 2011. Next, we have the quarterly treasurer report dated September 1st, 2011 through November 30th, 2011. The fourth report is the semi-annual treasurer report dated June 1, 2011 through November 30th, 2011. And the fifth and final report is the annual treasurer report dated December 1, 2010 through November 30th, 2011. And I move to place those on file.
Moved by Mr. Custis, second by Mr. Singer. Any questions? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary, motion is carried.
My first resolution is 12-3, is a resolution appropriating drug court enhancement, grant funds, and State's Attorney's Drug Court budget, and I move for approval.
Moved by Mr. Custer, second by Ms. Rozak. Any questions? Previous roll call by Mr. Stewart, second by Ms. May. All in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary motion is carried.
12-04 is a resolution appropriating IDOT sustained traffic enforcement grant funds in the sheriff's budget, and I move for approval.
Moved by Mr. Custis, second by Ms. Hart. Any questions? Previous roll by Mr. Adamick, second by Mr. Wilhelmy. All in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary motion is carried.
12-05 is a resolution transferring appropriations within sheriff's corporate budget, and I move for approval.
Moved by Mr. Custis, second by Ms. McPhillips. Any questions? Previous roll by Mr. Stewart, second by Mr. Babich. All in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary motion is carried.
12-06 is a resolution authorizing the county executive to execute necessary documents for delinquent tax program, and I move for approval.
Moved by Mr. Custis, second by Ms. Grossi. Any questions? Previous roll by Mr. Gould, second by Ms. Traynor. All in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary motion is carried.
Be safe and happy January.
Thank you very much, Mr. Costa. Moving on to Public Works and Transportation Committee. Mr. Bellotta, Chairman.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, Jim.
Get right into it. First resolution, 12-07. This is an altered speed zone to request a new Lenox Township on Joliet Highway from Spencer Road to Princeton Lane, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Bellotta, second by Mr. Gould. Any questions? Previous roll by Mr. Rainier, second by Mr. Howard. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary motion has carried.
12-08 is another altered speed zone, New Lenox Township request on Joliet Highway, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Bellotta, second by Ms. Rozak. Any questions? Previous roll call by Mr. Smith, second by Ms. Hart. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary motion has carried.
12-09, this is a county joint agreement with IDOT for the improvement at the intersection of River Road and Route 53, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Bellotta, second by Mr. Gould. Any questions? Previous roll by Ms. May, second by Ms. Rozak. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary motion is carried.
12-10, this is simply paying for the prior resolution using motor fuel tax funding, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Bellotta, second by Mr. Brooks. Any questions? Previous roll by Mr. Wilhelmy, second by Ms. Winfrey. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary motion is carried.
12-11, this is for construction engineering services for the reconstruction of Weber and Renwick Road, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Bellotta, second by Mr. Smith. Any questions? Previous roll call by Mr. Mayor, second by Ms. McPhillips. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary motion is carried.
That contract actually will be awarded in Springfield on March 19th. That's that $14 million intersection improvement that we've been working on here at the board for quite some time, and hopefully spur some economic development with Meyer coming in. So thank you guys for all your support on that, and we'll see it moving forward. Next is 12-12. This is for, it's a piggybacking off of the prior resolution for additional improvements with the, taking it from Gaskin Drive all the way to Airport Road, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Bellotta, second by Ms. Goodson. Any questions? Previous roll by Mr. Adamick, second by Mr. Costello. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary motion is carried.
Okay, 12-13. This is agreement to use easement over the lands of ComEd, Commonwealth Edison Company, for bridge reconstruction project on Will Center Road over the south branch of the Rock Creek, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Bellotta, second by Mr. Howard. Any questions? Previous roll by Mr. Gould, second by Mr. Brooks. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary motion has carried.
12-14. This is Phase 2 Design Engineering Services for roadway work at the intersection of Laraway Road and Center Road, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Bellotta, second by Ms. May. Any questions? Previous roll by Mr. Smith, second by Ms. McPhillips. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary motion is carried.
12-15, this is confirming award of contract for the construction of a structure replacement project over the Rock Creek, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Bellotta, second by Ms. Winfrey. Any questions? Previous roll by Ms. Rozak, second by Mr. Mayor. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary motion is carried.
Okay, 12-16, that's an IDOT County joint agreement for federal funds of about $2 million of CMAQ and STR funds for the construction of the intersection at Plainfield and Naperville Road and 119th Street, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Bellata, second by Ms. Hart. So any questions? Previous roll by Mr. Mayor, second by Ms. McPhillips. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion is carried.
1217, this is an agreement between Will County and the Village of Crete for the maintenance of a storm sewer system, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Bellata, second by Mr. Howard. Any question? Previous roll by Mr. Babby, second by Mr. Zagrosi. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion has carried.
Concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bellata. Next, moving on, we go to the Judicial Committee. Ms. Drayle, Chairperson.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning,
I have no
Ann.
resolutions to bring forward today, but I do have two announcements. Next month in February, on February 7th, the Judicial Committee is inviting everyone for a tour of the ADF. We've moved our committee meetings around for that day to accommodate a tour late morning. Finance will be meeting at 8:30, Cap will be meeting at 9:30 or sooner, depending on Finance, and then Judicial. I would encourage everyone to please take advantage of the tour. One of the highlights, I believe, will be that we will be having lunch at the detention facility, and we will be having the lunch that everyone else there eats. So, if you come and you're not interested, bring a paper bag. The other announcement I have is on February 15th, after our February County Board meeting, the Female Caucus will be meeting. Mr. Glasgow, Mr. Gray, and one of our judges will also be at this meeting. We have missed a couple of meetings. We were supposed to meet today, but due to the Bolingbrook State of the Village and a number of female board members attending, I did cancel. We will have some exciting presentations and ideas that will be brought forward by Mr. Glasgow, our state's attorney. I would encourage you all to attend. We will meet immediately after the county board meeting. We will have lunch brought in. It'll probably cost each of you about $5 or $6. If you don't want to buy your lunch, Mr. Mustis has offered to buy it for you. If you have any questions, please get in contact with me. We'll be getting some memos out in the next couple weeks, and I want to thank Mr. Glasgow and Mr. Ken Gray for putting this together and for helping with some great initiatives that they're going to be bringing forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to Public Health and Safety Committee. Mr. Gould, Chairman.
Good morning, Mr. Executive.
Good morning, Don.
Fellow board members, I have two resolutions for your consideration. I have Resolution 12-18, a resolution renewing contract for therapy services at Sunny Hill Nursing Home, and I move for approval.
Moved by Mr. Gould, second by Ms. Trainier. Any questions? Previous roll call by Mr. Brooks, second by Ms. May. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion is carried.
I have Resolution 12-19, a resolution awarding a bid for pharmaceutical services at Sunny Hill Nursing Home, and I move for approval.
Moved by Mr. Gould, second by Ms. Rozak. Any questions? Previous roll by Ms. McPhillips, second by Ms. Hart. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion has carried.
Thank you. That concludes my report.
Thank you very much, Don. Next on our agenda is Legislative and Policy Committee. Ms. Goodson, Chairperson.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, Leanne.
We've been working on our legislative agenda, and we'll be focusing on many of the same legislative agenda items that we were focused on in 2011. Some of those include trying to move forward again our administrative towing fee bill that failed on a vote last year in 2011, and after a long day for our legislators, so we're going to be asking that be brought back up again in 2012. The Iliana Expressway and all of the legislative items that go with moving that forward. The South Suburban Airport, there's been some speculation that there may be some movement this session on the airport, and so we'll be monitoring that. The hospital tax exempt status, which we passed a resolution last year supporting our local hospitals, that they still be able to remain tax exempt because of the consequences of not being able to be tax exempt. Just asking for some clarification, basically in the tax law on that, and there will be possibly some legislation introduced in 2012 to support that. Our local government distributive funds will continue to oppose any diversion of those funds, and also continue to request that there be direct deposit of those funds so that they're available to us sooner. And then also the RTA tax issue, the streamlined sales tax, where you see some tax sourcing on the part of some businesses trying to avoid the higher taxes when their primary business is in the counties that have the higher taxes. There are several of our departments submitted other legislative items that they would like for us to monitor, which we will continue to keep on our list. And then also, recently we went out for an RFQ for a new state lobbyist, and I'm happy to report that we received 8 applications. So we'll be moving forward with interviews on those applicants in the near future. On the federal level, the ban on earmarks continue, and so our strategy continues to be to work with the various agencies, one regarding the surface transportation reauthorization so that we can attract grant dollars for our transportation projects. The Water Resources Development Act, these are grant dollars that we have tried to pursue in the past for our flood studies to look at local flooding issues and try to, I guess, correct those. And then our Workforce Investment Act reauthorization. We've got a great program in Will County. It's a model program for the country, really, and we continue to pursue the reauthorization of funding for that program. So these are the things that we'll be focusing on, and we'll keep you apprised as session begins on the 31st of January in Springfield.
Thank you. Any questions for Leanne? Anyone have any questions? Seeing none, thank you very much, Leanne.
Thank you.
Next, we move on to the Capital Improvements Committee. Mr. Mayor, Chairperson.
Thank you, Mr. Executive and fellow board members. As I look at the clock, it dawns on me that we haven't heard what the over and under is in this whole process, and maybe that's why we're moving so close, right? We're moving so quick. I don't know. All right, so if I jinked it, I don't know who wins that one. There's nothing official to report from the Capitol today. We did start in our meeting here in January the discussion on our plan and our goals for moving forward. One of the things of note is to really take a look at the Laraway property and how all the services that are being done down there could be better organized for more efficiencies here in the county government, noticing that there are several duplications of services. And as we start looking at this, I appreciate all the work and effort that your staff has done, Mr. Executive, with ours to be able to look at streamlining some of the activities that we have. So this is not just a plan that's going to be addressing brick and mortar, but also a lot of the services and things that are going to be going forward here with the county. And with that, I conclude my report.
Thank you very much, Chuck. Next, we move on to the Executive Committee. Mr. Mustis, Chairman.
Good morning, Executive Walsh.
Good morning,
County
Jim.
Board. My first item today is 1220, replacement hires for Sunny Hill, and I will move for approval.
Moved by Mr. Mustis, second by Mr. Babbage. Any questions? Previous roll call by Mr. Adamick, second by Mr. Stewart. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion is carried.
Next item is 1221, resolution ratifying the contract with Aon for benefits consulting. I'll move for approval.
Moved by Mr. Mustis, second by Ms. Rozak. Any questions? Previous roll by Ms. Goodson, second by Ms. McPhillips. All in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary, motion is carried.
Next I have...
Question, Mr. Singer.
Thank you. I don't have a question, but Nancy, if you could please show me as a no on 1221. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Mustis.
Next we have resolution 1222, a resolution authorizing to extend the lease with the Will County Public Building Commission. I will move for approval.
Moved by Mr. Mustis, second by Ms. May. Any questions? Previous roll call by Mr. Wilhelmy, second by Ms. Winfrey. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion is carried. Whoop. Mr. Singer, you want to be a yes on this one? Thank you.
1223, resolution establishing a pharmaceutical take-back program with the City of Joliet, and I will move for approval.
Moved by Mr. Mustis, second by Mr. Brooks. Any questions? Previous roll call by Mr. Mayor, second by Mr. Smith. All in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary, motion has carried.
Next, we have Resolution 1224, a resolution in support of the new Freedom Grant Agreement with the RTA, and I will move for approval.
Moved by Mr. Mustis, second by Mr. Gould. Any questions? Question, Mr. Howard.
Just a comment. Being one of the representatives of the townships that's represented in this agreement, I have to thank the county executive staff, the county chairman and his staff, and also the county board for going through this process. It was initiated back when we started the steering committee. This was a recommendation that was put forth at that time. There's been a lot of hours put into this, a lot of hard work. And the thing that I'd like to bring to the table here today is that basically this is the county making a difference in someone's lives immediately. This is putting someone on a bus and allowing for transportation. And the area that I represent is both urban, we have semi-rural and rural areas, and basically this is a lifeline in the rural areas. This is fantastic. There's not enough good things that can be said about this agreement and what it means to those that it's going to service. So thanks again.
Thank you, Mr. Howard, for those comments. So we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Previous roll by Mr. Adamick, second by Mr. Mayor. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary, motion is carried.
Next, we have Resolution 1225, a resolution awarding bid for time and attendance system for the Sheriff's Department and Sunny Hill Nursing Home. I'll move for approval.
Moved by Mr. Mustis, second by Ms. Trainier. Any questions? Previous roll by Mr. Custis, second by Ms. McPhillips. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion is carried.
Resolution 1226, resolution declaring various electronics equipment surplus and authorizing recycling and disposal, and I will move for approval.
Moved by Mr. Mustis, second by Ms. Winfrey. Any questions? Previous roll by Mr. Adamick, second by Ms. Hart. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary, motion is carried.
1227, resolution authorizing 6-month extension for food service contract with Armac Food Service for River Valley Juvenile Detention Center, and I will move for approval.
Moved by Mr. Mustis, seconded by Mr. Stewart. Any questions? Yes, Ms. Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Izzo. Any questions? Previous roll call by Mr. Wilhelmy, second by Ms. May. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary, motion is carried.
Resolution 1228, authorizing the hiring and funding of the administrative adjudication clerk, and I'll move for approval.
Moved by Mr. Mustis, seconded by Ms. Winfrey. Any questions? Previous roll by Mr. Gould, second by Ms. May. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary, motion has carried. Would you like to be a yes on this, Mr. Izzo? Yes, I do. Thank you. Mr. Mustis?
1229, resolution awarding bids for consulting services for aggregation of electric load, and I will move for approval.
Moved by Mr. Mustis, second by Mr. Brooks. Questions? Mr. Mustis, comments?
There's just a couple things I'd like to point out. Like all of our consulting, we rank the consultants, the top 3. We then give it to the county executive to negotiate. And in this case, we're giving the executive the authority to negotiate and execute the contract so we can keep this on a timely manner as we go forward. Just so everybody's aware of how we, first off, select and how it's negotiated, and that this does include the execution of the contract.
Any question for Mr. Mustis? Mr. Mayor, did you have?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is a group that's coming out of Ohio, and we have a number of Illinois representatives here. You must have really thought that these folks were head and shoulders above the group. Can you please expand on that?
I will, since I sat on the selection or ranking committee, I can tell you that there were 6 members, 7 members. I'm trying to think. Anyways, there were 6 or 7 members that unanimously felt this was the best firm to do the initial aggregation for us. I think a lot of it had to do with they had extensive experience. They did in Ohio. They have represented over 100 entities in aggregation, and we felt this was probably the company that was the best fit to do this initially. So a lot of it had to do, I think, Chuck, with their extensive experience in doing this. And I might add, it still has to be negotiated. I mean, we selected them. There's a lot of things that go into negotiation, including, what their compensation is, what type of other work they may do. We did feel this company probably also has the ability to get us the best rates out there, just so you know.
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
That was a committee decision, not just mine. I'm just saying that.
And I understand that. I appreciate that. As part of this negotiation, will they be looking at local power generations? I mean, I'm sure they have a very good network in Ohio and some of that.
Let me say that I think that matter of fact, he were the only ones who mentioned who is on each grid and who supplies power. And I didn't even realize. I realize Naperville has their own generation, but there is another. I forget what the name of the company is, but there is someone else who provides distribution and power in the state besides Commonwealth Edison, which I didn't. What was it? Yeah, right. So I mean, for example, they were the only ones who pointed that out, that there's a choice. And here again, I think it's because of their experience. But I always want to point out that if any time the executive's office, the county executive, feels that this may not be the best firm while they're negotiating, they have the ability to come to the board and say, we're going on to number 2, this isn't a fit. So that's why we rank them 1, 2, 3. But we do start negotiating with the number 1. So all I can say, Chuck, is that the committee was unanimous on this was the number 1 firm.
And Jim, I trust your judgment. I just wanted to make sure.
I don't know if I always trust my judgment, but along with all the others, I'll trust it. How's that? The committee. Yeah, I've made a few mistakes in my life, let me tell you.
Thank you. Ms. Winfrey?
Not a question, I'm just abstaining.
Oh, okay. She's going to abstain. Ms. Konecki?
I know that the Will County Governmental League has taken a leading role in approaching various units of local government and encouraging them to participate in an aggregation program. I know they've gotten support, I believe, from Joliet and Homer Glen. Are we working with them, or are we investigating going our own direction in terms of who we aggregate with?
Mr. Bellotta, you want to expound on that?
Sure. In the interviews, and we did meet with one of the firms that we interviewed was the firm Daycott, who was actually representing the Governmental League. I think there's about 20 municipalities. Through the interviews, it was clear that sometimes there's a level where the population getting too big could actually hurt the price and drive the price. We're large enough, us by ourselves, that we could play with that number and time the market when we feel it's need to be timed to get into. Ducat, good company, Government League doing a great thing. It's nothing against that. It's just we feel it's in the best interest of the Will County unincorporated people to do that. And plus with this, we control it, this board and our consultant firm, and when you have 20 other agencies, we're just one fish in that. We're a big fish in that pond if we did it that way. This way we can control it and do our own thing. And we actually feel we could get a better price. It's all timing of the market, but we feel that we'd be in a better position to get a better price on that as well.
Do we have any idea how much we're going to pay this consulting firm, ballpark?
That's part of the negotiation thing, but it's definitely going to be, it's not going to be anything more or less than, or it's going to be ballpark with the industry.
No,
And a
I-
lot depends on what the services that they're going to provide and what we decide we want, and that's something I know Mr. Rafek will be a part of.
But I mean, we're going to pay a consultant to evaluate, so what are we paying?
We don't pay the consultant. The consultant is actually paid by the suppliers, and they're paid like almost. I'm gonna make the analogy to insurance. Consultants or insurance agents get paid by the insurance underwriters. You don't pay them as an individual or a company necessarily. This is kind of the same thing. I don't want to use the word commission, but I'll use the word commission. Now, certainly, just like our insurance program, we would probably say, we're going to cap that at some point, because we want our residents to get the savings. We want them to get the benefit. But let me also say, and here again, this is where negotiations come in. It depends on what you want them to do. There was talk about civil grants, for example, where they would give money back to the county for distribution to worthy causes. We've done those types of things in the past. Are you interested in doing that? Because that all goes into the number. For example, I think the committees repeatedly said that we want the savings to go to the residents. The county wasn't interested in getting money for this and so forth. Same thing with the consultant. Depends on how extensively do you want him to work on the referendum, which comes out of his end, because we can't do it. And then even then, it can only be educational. How much of that do you want the consultant to do? So there is some variables in there, I guess, Kathleen, is what I'm saying. But basically, they're paid by a commission, and I think, and certainly we will be I'm sure the executive's office will make that part of the overall negotiation, and you will see that number, and certainly I'm confident that that number will not exceed or be less than what you may see on average.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm probably going to be, with all due respect, I'm probably going to be a no vote because
That's
I was
okay.
present at the Homer Glen Village Board meeting when the Will County Governmental League did their presentation, and it was very clear that the more, I think they've done a very good job. They are doing a very good job. Basically, in selection and bringing local units of government together, the more of the local units of government that come together, the lower price for
That's
everyone.
not true.
So
That's not true.
But
apparently that's
Kathleen,
disputed, but I'm going to be a no vote this morning.
If I may say one other thing about the governmental league, Mr. Executive, we did look at it and we talked to them. And after talking to all the consultants, including the governmental league's consultant, they all said that, bigger doesn't mean better, and that, all said, certainly Will County is large enough to be on its own and probably and get the best pricing. The other consideration for the committee is were we going to hand this over to the governmental league, which is basically an organization not that's managed not by elected officials, where we're going to aggregate our authority to an agency, and then we would be done. If there were problems, you have to sit down with 20 other municipalities to perhaps resolve them, and with their interest always be the same interest of the counties. So I think that we felt that it was better. One of the considerations that the Will County would have the oversight of the program and not the governmental league having the oversight. Now, if other municipalities, certainly the smaller ones, I see where that makes sense. And if they want to give that authority over to the governmental league to run their program, that's fine. We felt it wasn't probably in the best interest of the unincorporated people, that it was better that the Will County government have oversight of the program.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor?
Just 2 points. I totally agree with my colleague about Will County having control over this. I mean, part of this is purchasing when the time is right and getting the best prices. And so being quick and nimble and having less people in that decision-making process, I think, is a huge benefit for us. It's not just the quantity that you buy, but it's the timing for when you buy it, which is one thing. And I think another thing that I would suggest, and I believe it was mentioned in caucus here, is with in regards to references, that as we go forward here and you all are in negotiations with the executive office, that a consultant in a environment like we put them in, and you put 6 people in front of us, can say whatever they want, and the people that say the best and present the best get the business. That doesn't mean that the outcomes that they've done in the past that they reported are exactly the way they've reported it. And so it would be nice to get a few references from them so that we do our due diligence in this decision-making process just to make sure.
Yeah, they gave us over 100 references, so there's plenty to choose from.
Ms. Konecki.
Yes, I understand that in a sense we're only in this agreement where whatever we do is going to impact the unincorporated areas. However, as a unit of government, we represent every citizen in this county, and including those within municipalities. So I am concerned about doing anything that would put them in a less strong negotiating position. I continue to believe that if we operated as a county and took a perspective, county-wide perspective, and stuck together, that we would still get the best price and be able to split the expense of this, commission among more people. So I'm going to remain a no. I will be a no vote.
Thank you. Any other questions? Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Yes.
Adamick? Howard?
We don't represent
Singer?
them in everything they do.
Izzo? Weigel? Drayle? Hart? McPhillips? Custa? Mayor?
Why'd you do that? That's a great idea.
Okay. Trainier? Goodson? Smith? Gould? May? Rozak? Konecki? Zagrozi? Brooks? Stewart? Winfrey? Babbage? Wilhelmie? And Mustis?
Yes.
Thank you.
23 affirmative, 1 negative, 1 abstain.
23 affirmative, motion has carried.
Next item on the agenda is appointments by the county executive, and I will move for approval.
Moved by Mr. Mustis, second by Mr. Stewart. Any questions? Previous roll call by Mr. Wilhelmie, second by Mr. Babbage. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Conetry, would you like to be a yes, Ms. Konecki? Would you like to be yes, Ms. Winfrey? Thank you. Thank you both. Moving on, announcements by the County Board Chairman, Mr. Mustis.
Earlier, I was asked, well, you think your comments are going to be long? And I said, it's a lot like a reverend, Mr. Brooks. Depends on how the Spirit strikes me today. So I don't know if the sermon's going to be 15 minutes or 2 hours. Yeah, no offering. I'll give an offering, absolutely. One of the things I suppose that's been on my mind recently, it's one of those issues that, kind of on the front of the list, then falls back a little bit, then comes back to the front of the list, and that's the Will County Airport. And I kind of refuse to call it the South Suburban Airport. The Will County Airport. And I'm going to give just a tad of history. This could go on very long. And that is I haven't lived in Will County my entire life, but I've lived here for over the last 41 years. I was a pretty young adult when I moved out here. One of the first issues in my area in Frankfort Township that I really dealt with was airport. You wouldn't think this is going back into the 1970s. the point where Frankfurt Township even did its own airport study. This is when they were trying to figure out where the airport might be located. Even though I was told by an airport expert there was really not much of a choice that it would wind up in Will County, unless the mayor wanted to fill in Lake Calumet and, build an airport out on the lake. So, eventually the Will County site was put out there. Of course, Chicago, Mayor Daley really objected to any additional airports in the region because he was working on the expansion of O'Hare. Then came along the election. To show how long ago this goes back, then President Clinton was elected. And one of the first things President Clinton did was took it off. There will be no third airport in Chicago. Dead on arrival. Told the FAA, you won't even look at it. So for 8 years, nothing. Dead in the water. Many people were happy, and there were some who were perhaps not as happy. Then President Bush gets elected. One of the first things President Bush does, puts it back on. This is a priority, he says, in aviation, and we will start looking at this third airport in the Chicago region. No real big reaction initially, but then Governor Ryan did say this is going to be an initiative of Illinois. He put some money into it with his Illinois First program, and they started talking about the development of a third airport in the Will County area. Let's just call it the Peatone site, as it's commonly known, but I'm not so sure it's why it's always Peatone. It's really in that general area, but in its entirety in the unincorporated area. Of course, we always thought that we had an airport authority with the Kankakee River Valley Airport Authority, and then was told by then Secretary of Transportation Brown, oh no, that doesn't mean anything because they can't get any funding. They have no ability to raise money, no bonding authority. And I'm thinking, well, what was it there for then? But Will County continued to work on the third airport. We talked about an airport authority along with the Ryan administration. Things were going fine as far as, they were moving along. And, of course, then Governor Ryan's out. We get Governor Blagojevich. Well, before Ryan was out, let me say this. Before Governor Ryan had left office, Bensonville and Oak Grove Village came to Will County, asked us to immediately put under governance together, handed us something and said, here's what we want you to do. We will finance it. We'll do this, but you have to do this right now. So we're not going to do this. We'll look at it. We want you to do a coalition with us because we want to stop the expansion of O'Hare Airport. That was their only interest. They had no transportation interest, no other interest. We, Will County, said, we support the expansion of O'Hare Airport, and we don't want to be any part of your initiatives to block the expansion and modernization of O'Hare Airport. I certainly think that was the correct position to take. So we told them no. I don't know, the next day, maybe 2 days later, all of a sudden, Congressman Jackson standing on the steps, I have formed this, which is now considered ALNAC, and we're on board, and we're going to build an airport. We're with Bensonville and Elk Grove Village. Didn't give too much of a thought to it. Went on his typical public relation, kind of campaign. And here again, we didn't give it too much thought. We just figure while they're out there that they'll be. Now the Blagojevich administration comes in. Now we, Will County, are getting a little concerned because, you know, you're seeing these things come from Alnac. The state of Illinois, IDOT, told us, please don't get involved in this. We'll do the airport study. That's our job. Don't respond to Alnac. Sit there. Here's what we'd like you to do. And oh, by the way, you're doing absolutely the right things. We did what the state of Illinois requested us to do, and that was not to interact or start getting engaged with Alnac or disputing what they were doing, disputing their governance, disputing what they were telling. The state of Illinois requested us not to do that. We'd go march down to Springfield. You know, we heard from many of our own legislators. Well, you know what? You got to work it out with Congressman Jackson. Really? Who do you represent here? I'm telling you, there's a whole other history. There was a history why we didn't engage with Alnac, because that was at the request of the state of Illinois. They asked us not to. We did what exactly they asked us to do, and they never acknowledged they asked us to do it. They asked us to go out and do some financial modeling. They asked us to stay away from airport design. That was at their request. And they asked us to keep our mouth shut. We're the good child. We're being the good child, I guess. Get a pat on the head. Oh, you guys are being good. You're absolutely right. You're doing the right thing. I want to fast forward a little bit. We all know this has been much more of a political process than it has been a planning process or a process about building an airport. And by the way, it's not about building an airport. Anybody can build an airport. Herb, you and I can go out and build that airport. All kinds of consultants out there. You know, especially if the state of Illinois is willing to give us $100 million in land. No problem. We'll collateralize that to the hilt. We'll get our money, we'll be gone. It has just as much to do with the operation of the airport. Another thing that we started to do early on with the CED, you know, you have to have somebody who's going to come and use it. Who is the potential users for the airport? We didn't do a lot of work there, but we felt that was absolutely necessary to know if anybody was going to come. It wasn't, you know, build it and they will come, as you hear from some. So here's my real frustration. State of Illinois has never given us a fair shake. The current governor and the past governors never gave Will County an even shake. Matter of fact, they've looked at every way at disregarding and disrespecting Will County and the residents here, like somehow we don't exist. You want to give this to Southern Cook County? We, Will County, will not let you give us a kick in the head. You will not. We will fight this all the way. I will fight this all the way. And by the way, I don't think that our county executive, past and current, although are given some little bit of an audience, have never been given the respect they deserve. I don't think they've ever been given the consideration they deserve. Now, Executive Walsh has never said that to me. Former Executive Mikan never said that to me. This is my own observation. They give them a lot of lip service and then go, get along with the program. Get along. You join the program. We don't care about what you want. That's the end result. Yeah, they let you come in the office for an hour or two, but the end result is, at the end of the day, they're telling us, get along, you do what we want, and that is Alnac, and you get along with Jesse Jackson, and we're going to do what he wants. Really? I hear from Congressman Jackson, oh, he's going to represent the area. Well, he certainly didn't care about the other congressmen that represented the area. He never gave them the respect they deserved as representatives of the area. Totally disregarded them. But now wants to stand there and say, well, I'm going to represent this area. Now you respect me? Really? You've shown us nothing but disrespect, disregard. I am not going to sit here silent. I will probably give the executive heartburn along the way. Larry, I'm sorry if I do. But I'm doing what I think is right for Will County. And I'm not going to let this governor, past governors, you will not dump on us. We'll fight you all the way. All the way. I don't know, sometimes, I know there's people in this room who don't support the airport, and I understand that. But if they're going to force it here, it'll be on our terms, not on somebody else's. And Governor Quinn, you will not treat us like somehow we're second-class citizens and we don't exist. You don't think you need us? You might find out different later. You want to go in the back room and work out this politically? We're going to be yelling. We're going to be exposing, especially for a program that absolutely has all types of flaws in it, which we've pointed out many times, which seem to fall on deaf ears in Springfield for whatever reason, or in the governor's office. Herb, you think I should wind this sermon up? Huh? Should I pass the hat now? Okay. I thank you for all being patient and letting me go on a little bit here. Executive Walsh, you should understand I support all your initiatives. And here again, they may hear a little different tune from me. I may not always be as diplomatic, but I'll give them some heartburn too along the way. So thank you all. Make sure you bundle up. It's going to be cold out there. I probably blew the over and under, huh? Okay, all right. Okay. So here again, I thank you for your patience. Hopefully, you feel the same way I do. I would say to everyone, speak out. Do not be silent. Do not let them think that Will County stands alone, or that Executive Walsh stands alone, or I stand alone. All our voices need to be heard. Reverend, amen.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Very nice and appropriate comments. I mean that sincerely. So, moving on, Mr. Bellotta, the Majority Leader.
Pretty hard to follow that. No, you know what? I was actually last week. I did a presentation in front of the Kankakee Alliance, which is the equal to the Will County Center for Economic Development. A month before that, I sat in when Congressman Jackson did his presentation in front of them. But I wish you guys could have been there. The night and day difference, the facts that we threw out, the process that we have to follow. We're doing it the right way. We're doing it to look out for the residents of Will County. And I haven't been super engaged until recently with it. And the differences are night and day. They really are. And I think what we're doing is right for the people of Will County. Jim gets a little more passionate about it, which is great, but there's a lot of misinformation out there. And we do need to stand behind the folks, especially in eastern Will County. If it's going to go there, we got to make sure they're protected and the residents of Will County are protected. We need to have the governance plan which protects our people here in Will County, and we're gonna stick with that. So, anyway, another snowstorm coming on Friday. Been pretty good. It's 50s, 60s, and Januaries. I can handle this. So, my Florida wishes, I guess, are postponed a little bit, but silly season is beginning with campaign time, so everybody be respectful of one another, please. It's nice not having to deal with that. But anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim, and I want to thank you personally. You and Aaron Quick did a extraordinary job in Kankakee a couple of weeks ago, last week, and I was told that very informative and basically struck the same theme as Mr. Mustis did, and Kankakee, the majority of, well, I can't speak for Kankakee, but from the people I've talked to are on board with our plan, our thinking. So, and they already, many of them have passed. The Kankakee board has passed resolutions in support of the plan, the governance plan that the Business Labor Coalition has worked out. So, job well done.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Adamick, Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Executive and fellow board members. Good morning. Today it's with sorrow that I announced that Joe Babbich's aunt had passed away. We, I think, as a board, would like to express our condolences. Joe, we're sorry for your loss. This month we also celebrate a couple of birthdays. Martin Luther King's birthday, and the values in which he stood for. I'm sure if he were around today, he would probably be right with us with the Warehouse Workers for Justice. Denise, thank you for bringing that to our attention. Joe Babbich's birthday is this month, so I want to wish him a happy birthday on a happier note. It's wintertime, as we all know. We've had a pretty mild winter as it's gone up to this point with very little snow. But keep in mind if you have neighbors that have a difficult time with getting snow, elderly neighbors or something who need a little help out, it would be good to lend them a hand and keep an eye out for them when we have the cold temperatures and snow. So I wish everybody a good day. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Wally. And Joe, you should have brought a cake if it's your birthday, huh? We would have had to get a permit from the fire department for that big bonfire, though. Saying nothing more, the county board will stand adjourned until Thursday, February the 15th at 9:30 a.m.